Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Old Hunt, where we are still celebrating 10 years of Bloodborne. And we have sort of settled into a nice little pattern here where I sort of read some important descriptions in the dream, get a little bit of lore going, and then we go and explore a little bit more of the world and uncover some more stuff, and then I talk about that next time. I like the way that this rhythm has sort of established itself, right? I like this relatively consistent flow of new things to talk about because we've been in parts of the game where there's just been too much. We've been in parts of the game where it's been sort of hardly anything at all in terms of new items and dialogues and things. And then this section of the game, it sort of feels like we've hit a good rhythm where we're consistently getting stuff that I want to talk about that I can delay till the start of the next episode. And I think this is important because especially since I've been talking about the stuff in the Forbidden Woods, I've been paying attention to like item rate acquisition, right? I haven't been quite as formal about it, as I've said before. I haven't been tracking all the unique items that we've been getting, but I'm noticing that this is a nice little sort of flow state. This feels like a reasonable amount of consistent new information that I'm able to go over at the start of each episode, then we get a little progress in, and it feels like a nice pace. So I appreciate that the game is sort of settled into that rhythm at this point. It's very nice. Anyway, let's stop talking about that and actually do that. I will say last time, because I want to give a little bit of a reminder, stay cohesive here. I think it helps to give a little bit of a recap of what happened last time. And last time, we finished basically part 2 of our internal explorations of Cainhurst Castle. We opened the second shortcut, which is also the way forward, because there's a hidden ladder, and that threw me off in the past, and now I know about it, so it's not going to throw me off this time. No, I am wise to the game's tricks now. Well, most of them. Some of them are still kind of complicated and elude me, but we're not going to dwell too much on that. We are going to dwell on the Executioner's Gloves, right? I wanted to talk about these because I intend to use them, and I've used them in the past. You can see me using them on my Translation-Born build. This is, right, until the DLC comes out, this is sort of the premier arcane playthrough item for most of the game. There are other arcane tools, and they are like powerful and useful and helpful in what they do, but at least for me, my style of playing the arcane playthrough, like the Executioner Gloves is just, I mean, they're the way to go. Anyway, let's go ahead and read the item name and talk about the description here. So the item name, pretty straightforward. Executioner, as in a person who executes people, right, is the first thing here. And then we have no in the center. That means of, and then we end with gloves. So just very literally gloves of an executioner, or possibly multiple executioners, right? Because this is Japanese and it doesn't specify with the noun by itself, and there's no like specific indication in the title. Actually, as we read the description, you'll see that it's pretty definitively multiple executioners. But I mean, here's the somewhat confusing things, right? There is a squad of executioners, as the Japanese will identify them. I think I got the clothing. I don't want to read that clothing set just yet because it's going to be a little while before we get the final piece to it, and I don't want to like get ahead of myself. But as you can see in this description here, there is the phrase shoke tai, and that tai essentially means like squad or group, and shoke means execution. So this is the executioning group, right? The execution group. They are the executioners, right? It is an organization within the Healing Church known as the Executioners, and they are not to be confused. I gotta go all the way back here. They are not to be confused with the shoke nin, and the nin is a reading of person. It could be Jean. I think it's nin. I'll look that up in editing and put whatever's correct on the screen. Anyway, the final kanji means person, and this is just an executioner, a group of executioners. We're gonna get there, but it's like a family lineage of individual executioners, maybe not even family. It's just a continuance across time. Several different executioners have used these gloves, and so they're not affiliated with the Healing Church. And it's very confusing, both in English and in Japanese. It's a little bit more confusing in English because you don't have the difference between like the kanji, right? You don't have the executioner group versus the execution person, right? The executioner, to sort of make that very fine distinction. But I still think it's confusing. So that's just an important thing to bear in mind, is that these particular gloves are not associated with the group calling themselves the Executioners in the Healing Church. This is gloves that belong to people whose job it is to kill people. Okay, having clarified that, let's move on to the description where we'll see the evidence for some of the stuff that I've said before. Okay, one of the hidden treasures stored within Cainhurst. Sort of that Cainhurst stores, if we want to be a little bit more literal. One of the hidden treasures that Cainhurst stores. And then, second line, gloves of an executioner from a faraway land. Actually, maybe executioners from a faraway land. When I say faraway land, the first kanji is far away, and the second kanji is country. So I like faraway land. I think the official translators use that, and I think it's appropriate, and it's fairly literal. I mean, distant country, right? Might be another way that you could translate that and be even more literal. But I just like the sound of faraway land. And I know it started to gain a little bit of a reputation in the Soulsborne community, because there's all these references in consistently the Soulsborne games to a faraway land. And because the Soulsborne games are generally Western in their settings, they're referring in some way to Japan. The Executioner's gloves, not obviously, as far as I can see, from Japan, so that's a little bit of a difference there. But who knows? It could be. They're just gloves. I don't know how definitively you can say they are or are not from a particular culture. Anyway, this is sort of once again confirming that this is just a set of gloves that belongs to a person or a group of people who their job was to execute people, and those people, those executioners, did that job in another country that's far away. Okay, we got there. And now it's stored in Cainhurst as a secret treasure. And they have multiple of these, right? Cainhurst seems to have accumulated several hidden treasures and held on to them. Interesting. Anyway, moving on to the central part of the description here. Okay, right. This is where we're getting the confirmation of what I was saying before. And it does seem to be a family lineage, because we have Kake, right? And the first one is essentially like a family, and the second one is like a line or a lineage, right? So the family lineage, passed down from generation to generation within a family lineage of executioners, is the first part of the third line here. So it is a familial thing. There's this one group of people who their job was killing other people, right? They're the executioners, and that job was inherited. Maybe this is pointing a little bit to Japanese practice, where the idea of a hereditary line of executioners. I don't know enough about the real world to verify that. Maybe, I don't know. If that's easy information to find out, I'll put it on screen in editing. If not, maybe you can tell me. I don't know. That'd be fun. Anyway, it's interesting to have that verified, though, because you are getting a little bit of a family generational tie here, even in something that's not necessarily these gloves could have just been used by a bunch of different executioners to get the effect that we're seeing. But it's interesting that Bloodborne, the game that's all concerned about lineage and passing things from one generation to the next, right? These gloves are passed from one generation to the next. And that's sort of not directly, but indirectly part of how they function the way they do. Anyway, let's get to the second half of this third line here. Okay, we're getting a long sentence that's sort of modifying they, right? Again, sorewa, it's that, right? It's one of the classic things we've seen. I feel like I talk about this in every episode, right? It's a reference back to something else. That's why it's normally translated as that, but in this case, I think it's referring to the gloves. So they, which are likely steeped in a vast quantity of blood, right? I say steeped, it's drenched in. I like steeped in English because it gets you that idea that sort of like you would steep tea, the flavor, some aspect of the thing that it's immersed in is penetrating into the other object, right? So the blood has sort of seeped into it, right? To use a word that sounds very similar to steeped, but is not the same, right? Some of that has sort of moved over and fundamentally changed the nature of the gloves over time. because I think that's getting at the idea of what's supposed to happen here. But I guess literally, right, like drenched, the gloves, which are probably drenched in a great deal of blood, being identified as the subject here. And then we go on to the fourth line, are now the dwelling place of countless vengeful spirits. And they, again, we're getting sore, right? So literally that, but it's a reference back to, I just talked about this in previous slides, reference back to something else. And I think in this time, it's the references to the vengeful spirits. So they can be summoned using blood as a catalyst. Hey, blood's being used as a catalyst again. This must be Bloodborne. Interesting that it's sort of reminding me of the Quicksilver Bullets. But actually, no, I was just going to check the Quicksilver Bullet. Actually, I'm in the dream. I can check the Quicksilver Bullet description. Hold on. Just because I have the opportunity. Okay. All right. So I'm glad I checked this because the Quicksilver Bullets are using mercury as a catalyst. So there is a difference, right? The Quicksilver Bullets, the user's blood is the base, and mercury is used as a catalyst. Quicksilver. That's why they're Quicksilver Bullets. Even though I think, and I've said this before, I think their core is blood. With the Executioner's gloves, blood itself is the catalyst. But what's it reacting with? It's reacting with the vengeful spirits that seem to dwell in these things because of the vast amounts of blood that they've absorbed over the years as they got passed down through this family line of executioners, right? So the way that this seems to work is you use some of your blood like you would use maybe when you make blood bullets. And notably, right, the connection to Quicksilver Bullets was not entirely spurious, right? Because these are powered by Quicksilver Bullets. And looping back around, actually, to the idea that Quicksilver Bullets, right, their base is blood, these things, the blood is the catalyst. So even though you have Quicksilver Bullets, which have a blood base and then a mercury catalyst, you're using those to activate these, which use blood as a catalyst. So what's the important thing about the Quicksilver Bullets that powers the Executioner's gloves? It's the blood. I think, right? I think that logic holds together. And so, you represent your using blood to power the Executioner's gloves by consuming Quicksilver Bullets because they're sort of ready, discrete units that are made with amounts of your own blood, powered up by Quicksilver. Anyway, I think that makes sense. I'm just gonna move on. We're gonna go to the final line here. Okay, the nobles loved or were fond of these. Again, I think these, kore is literally this, but I think we're getting a reference back to the gloves, right? It could be a reference to the summoning of the vengeful spirits, or it could be a reference to the gloves themselves, right? So I was interpreting it as the gloves could potentially be a reference to the spirits, because as we'll see in the second part of this line here, after the comma, they are said to have enjoyed the mad dances of the vengeful spirits. So clearly, the people of Cainhurst, right, the nobles of Cainhurst, who have their servants who are acting as knights, they, and like enjoying swirling around and drinking their blood, they're also enjoying just using these, summoning these spirits from these gloves. They got, they're pulling out one of the hidden treasures of Cainhurst and they're dabbing some blood on them. Maybe they're using some, Cainhurst is associated with Quicksilver Bullets. Maybe they're using their version of Quicksilver Bullets. Maybe they're just using blood. Maybe they're pouring some of the blood they're drinking that they like to drink on the gloves. I don't know. And they summon these vengeful spirits, and the vengeful spirits go and they like do this horrible thing and dance around, and they're having a great time. What a party. That's how they used it. It was a party trick for the nobles. And we can use it as an attack, right? Because we can send the vengeful spirits after our enemies by harnessing them with our own arcane power, right? And it's interesting that for all that these are using blood as a catalyst, the ultimate effect that they produce is arcane. And where are the stats? Right? If we look over here, all the way in the middle column, all the way on the bottom right, you'll see that there is a 20 requirement. You need 20 arcane to use these. And then just above that, you'll see that they have S rank scaling with arcane. So these are very tied into arcane builds and arcane power, and that's why, like I said, it's going to be like one of the main ways that we can make use of our arcane abilities. Beyond, we've got our weapons transformed, but this is going to give us an alternate means of attack, and because we've been boosting our arcane, it's going to be a potent alternative means of attack. So this gives us just another option to play with when we're playing the game. It gives us a good ranged attack, and we'll see it in action. I intend to put this on the hotbar and make some use of it, but I just want to make sure I didn't skip over anything in the description here. No, I think that about does it. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and get those equipped. Let's see. I think I haven't been using Augur of Ebrietas. Some people are really good at using the Augur of Ebrietas, but I'm not good at it. And also, this is 1.00. So at some point in an update, they added the ability for the Augur of Ebrietas to create like an opening. Like it leaves foes staggered, like you would if you get like a parry or a backstab. And then you can follow up with a visceral if you're very fast. In 1.00, they don't have that effect, right? The Augur of Ebrietas does not stagger enemies for you in this version of the game. So it's not as good. I think I'm just going to replace it. What? Wait a minute. Oh, I hit the wrong button. That's why. Okay, cool. Got it. All right. I'm just going to replace Augur of Ebrietas with the Executioner's Gloves. Those are absolutely the go-to arcane items as far as I'm concerned. Now, before we move on inside the castle, there is one set of attire that I want to start to read, even though we haven't fully acquired all the pieces. We're about to get the last one, and I think this will be a good way of going at it. Here we have the knight's clothing, and you'll note, I was going to say these are all the same, but you'll note that they're not quite all the same. And actually, I'm remembering now from Translation Board, this is a cool, very cool thing that I think they've done, where each one of these descriptions, right? The first line is basically the same, except, right, this one is garb. The final word has just changed to gloves. The final word has just changed to leg piece, essentially. Right, so it's in the end of the first line, only that one word is changing along with the garb. That makes sense. But the second line on each item is just slightly... I went too far. The second line on each item is just slightly different, right? They're not entirely the same, but not entirely different, right? So we're going to sort of go through each one of these, and I'll explain why I think that particular detail is kind of cool, particularly on this set. Okay. The set, by the way, it's the Knight's set, because this is the Knight's attire, Knight's garb, and this sort of goes against what I was saying was cool in the other episode, where you run into these servants who all of a sudden will pull up swords and blowguns and things, and they'll attack you, right? And so clearly the servants... they're literally servants, but they're also enemies, and that seems inexplicable until you find out that the nobles called the servants their knights, and therefore their servants by extension, right? The knights were responsible for dealing with beasts, but they don't wear this clothing. They would stand out a lot more if they wore this clothing. So maybe there's a differentiation, right? Maybe there's like an upper level of servant that is recognized as a knight, and they wear this set of clothes. I don't really know. That's one particular piece of the world building that doesn't quite tie together the way I might like, at least not explicitly. But I mean, this set looks, I think, really cool, particularly on a female character. So I think it's probably worth it. Anyway, let's go ahead and go through the description. An extremely noble sort of garb decorated with gold-threaded embroidery, or embellished with gold-threaded embroidery. So that's the second line, and that's the one that's going to be slightly different each time. And then we get a line break, and then this last part is going to be the same on every piece of attire. Okay, the Cainhurst way of doing things is... oh boy. I remember how I translated this in the super literal way of Translation Born. I think I said nostalgismic, and that sounds terrible. I don't think you should ever officially translate something that way, but I wanted to get across the idea, and I don't know exactly how to literally give you another idea of it, because Kaiko is reminiscent of the past. That's the first part. Shugi is a doctrine, so the doctrine of fondly remembering the past, and then Teki turns all of that into an adjective, right? So when I constructed that alternative word, right, I went with nostalgia for the fond reminiscence of the past, nostalgism for the idea of that being sort of a doctrine, a way of being, and then for Teki, which turns that whole thing into something that can modify a noun, essentially an adjective, I I made nostalgismic, right? Neologism, it's bad word. Don't use that. And it sounds awful, but it does sort of get across this idea of the Cainhurst way of doing things is tied up with remembering things from the past as a sort of doctrine that they apply to their lives, right? Like, again, like I almost can't think of a way to do it super literally without resorting to nostalgismic. But be that as it may, the idea, which I think is the most important thing, right? This is something I talk about in Translation Born. You don't want to be focused on the literal, right? Sometimes it's interesting to me that you would think that literal translation would be the easiest form of translation. Actually, no. Sometimes the ideas come to you more quickly and more effectively when you're thinking about a translation in the abstract than when you're thinking about it in terms of like strict literalism. Because sometimes the literal equivalent just doesn't exist or sounds terrible, or you can't figure out how the concept should go if you're trying to be that literal. This is one of those cases where I think it's harder to come up with a literal translation than it is to come up with... So the official translation, for instance, is like the Cainhurst way is a mix of nostalgia and bombast, or something to that effect. I can't remember if that's word for word, but it's close, right? And so you see that they're drawing on the idea of nostalgia, right? They don't have the whole like nostalgia as a doctrine and then turn that into an adjective, but they don't need to, right? They know that the Cainhurst way of doing things involves the fond reminiscence of the past, but you don't have to put necessarily all the same exact modifiers that are affecting the Japanese word into the English. Anyway, to move on past that one particular term, we get and also ogesa, right? So like overdone. That's what the official translation is translating as bombast, and I love it, right? Bombast is such a good way of getting across the like feel of like ogesa, right? Which is too much, it's overdone, but it's bombastic, right? It's totally in line with that, and the word itself is just fun because it's sort of, at least to me anyway, to my ear, it sounds like the sort of over-exaggeration that it's describing when you say something's bombastic. So I just love that. So the Cainhurst way being a mix of nostalgia and bombast, that's what that third line is getting at. And so moving on to the final two lines here. And therefore, as a result, the disposal of beasts is, I want to say considered, but that verb isn't necessarily there, is treated as a blood-drenched, decadent art. And when I say decadent, I mean like in the sense of decaying, right? Tai-hai is like a form of degeneration, right? Or corruption. I think that sort of idea, right? So it's a blood-drenched art, and it's also an art that involves degeneracy. And of course it does. You're talking about the disposal of beasts. And by disposal, I think we're talking about not just removing, but also killing, right? It's killing and removing beasts. And because the Cainhurst way is a mixture of nostalgia and bombast, they elevate this practice to something, yes, it's blood-soaked because it involves, killing these beasts. And yes, it's degenerate. It's decadent. Degenerate feels like it's also wrong. I don't know if this is a great one to, like, I'm having a hard time putting this into words at all, right? Maybe I'd say deteriorative form of art. Anyway, they sort of dress it up in beauty and honor. So they take this menial task, and because of the structure of their society, because of the way that Cainhurst does things, they're obsessed with nostalgia and with bombast. And so they elevate the disposal of beasts to an art form, and I want to say view it, right, as something as possessing its own beauty and honor. And I think that's consistent with the idea that we saw of the knights themselves, right? They're given the title of knights, right? But they're doing the work of hunters, right? They're doing the work of like this very nasty job where they have to fight and dispose of beasts. But they're Cainhurst, so they're going to do it with style. And that sort of style over substance, right? I think that's the connecting thread that I'm seeing here, right? If you call a servant a knight, does that give them honor? If you go about hunting beasts with this particular swagger, this particular style, does that make it beautiful? And the interesting thing is, I think you can see a way in which that would be true, right? I think you can see a way in which there would be actual beauty in the sort of martial art, to go with like a real world sort of parallel, right? They make a martial art out of their style of hunting beasts so that you could see some beauty in there. But at the same time, does that really fundamentally change the nature of the task? And that's a question that's worth asking. And I think the thing that makes it interesting is that it's not necessarily easy to come down on the answer to that question one way or the other, at least in my mind. Anyway, so that's the bulk of that description. Let's get back to that idea of the second line here that's slightly different. So these are, gloves of the Knights of Cainhurst, or the Cainhurst Knights. The Cainhurst way is a mix of nostalgia and bombast. And so they've turned beast hunting into this blood-soaked and deteriorative art of, embellished with beauty and honor. All that stuff, the before and the after, is going to be the same. The second line, though, is a very noble piece of attire, embellished with golden embroidery on a red base, right? It looks like leather in this picture, right? So I might be tempted to translate that as like on red leather, but you can't count on having a visual when you're translating something. So I don't remember what the official translators did with this, but note it's very similar, right? This one's embellished with, gold threaded embroidery. This one's embellished with golden thread on a red base. Not exactly the same, but very close. And now this one, again, the very first line is essentially the same, except for the word like leg piece. And then the final portion is going to be exactly the same, about nostalgia, bombast, and beast killing. But the second line here is, maybe they could have known to use leather on the gloves, because the leg piece, we're definitely getting the specification of leather, because this is a very noble piece of attire that uses high quality leather. So the thing that I want to point out is that each one of these lines, by being very similar but slightly different, sort of recreates in their slight little embellishments the idea of like a handcrafted item, like this set of attire is supposed to be, right? There is a base to the attire, and each one is sort of embellished in a slightly unique way to make it stand out. And so, like, each one of these descriptions is also just ever so slightly tailored so that each piece feels slightly unique, right? It's not like the complete difference that we get on some sets, right? Like, where's a good one? Maybe the Madman set? Which way is that? Maybe that was down, and now I'm just going to go up forever. Yeah, okay, apparently I should have gone down. Because... No, this is student. Okay, yeah, so here we have the Madman set, right? And you see the final section here, completely different, right? This isn't tailored. This is just a completely different, like, set of the description. Whereas when we get to these things, it's not completely different, and the ultimate meaning is the same, but you get just that little bit of, like, extra work that it feels artisanal, at least to me, right? This feels like someone went in and just put a little variety on each one of these pieces, sort of hand-worked. And so I think that's a very cool little bit of synchronicity between the writing and the thing that's being described in the visuals. Anyway, I've gabbed on at far long enough. Oh, I still don't have a headpiece. All right, that's cool. That's the final part of the set that we're missing. And that one, actually, if I remember correctly, does have a completely different description. But we are going to... Here we go. We're going to dress ourselves up like a knight. Because doesn't this look cool? I love the look of this set. I remember when I played the game, right? So my first playthrough, I was playing a male player character. And I got this knight set, and I didn't think anything of it. And I just kept playing. And my second character, it was a female character, and I started playing and I went through and I got the knight set, and I was like, wow, this looks great. Why didn't I think this set looked awesome on my male character? And then I made another male character, and I got the knight set, and I was like, right, I remember this set looks great. I'm going to put it on now. And I was, again, underwhelmed by what I saw. But the particular cut, I think, of the like female version of the set looks incredible. You feel free to disagree, but it's purely like personal preference thing. But man, I love the look of this set, and it's not quite complete, but we should complete it soon. Let's head back to not the abandoned old workshop. Let's head back to the abandoned castle, Cainhurst. We've got a rooftop to conquer. You know, it's funny, I was just talking about how I liked the sort of rhythm of talking about lore stuff in the dream and then coming into the game to make some progress, and that's worked out most of these episodes, and I think that's fair, but like, I talked for way too long in this one, I think. I think I maybe got a little carried away with the, you know, natural balance of all of this, and so I just spent a little bit too long going over the details. I'm just going to run past all these things if you're curious. And I want my stamina to regenerate by the time I get up this ladder, because those darts will continue to hit me. And as you'll note, each hit takes something off my stamina. And if my stamina ever goes to 0, I will fall off that ladder. So I want to be very mindful of that. Anyway, to finish the thought, I don't think we're going to be exploring things for very long in this episode. I could be wrong, but I don't think we're going to have quite enough gameplay as I'd like to sort of offset the talking that I did at the beginning. I like to have at least an even ratio of like action to lore speculation. Not even speculation. Well, sometimes it's speculation. Just lore discussion, I suppose. But, I don't know. It's really difficult to balance these things live, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Hello there, Wandering Madness. Boy, these things, when you're not attacking them with an arcane transformed attack, they are really stout. Thing's still hitting me with those stupid darts. Fair enough. Do I have a arcane-based weapon on me? I do. Okay, good. Oh, right, and I want to get my Executioner's gloves out. We got to use those at some point. Is there another Wandering Madness up here? Or is it like an item? I feel like there's one other thing in this sort of upstairs library area. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of the treasure chest that I already opened. Anyway, we've just done our circuit of the room there. And so now we can come out onto the roof, pull out the rifle spear again. I wanted to contrast the Wandering Madness, you know, that I hit with an arcane attack as opposed to otherwise, but that's fine, never mind. All right, now let's get a look at the Executioner's gloves. Yeah, all right, 294. Okay, this is the, oh, there we go, 411. I was like, that seems low. Gotcha. Okay. Now, I want to make use of the same trick. Alright, yeah, there you go. Stay right there. Ah, I'm faster than you. Good, yes, do that. I'm sort of hitting both of them because the span of the Executioner's gloves is so wide. It's okay. This thing does attack quickly, though. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Boy, I will say, as boring as I find the spear moveset, the speed is nice. That's sort of what was fun about the stake driver, was its moveset was a little bit more engaging to me, but it was also fast. Okay, and there we go. That's the final piece of the set that I was looking for. So let's just go over here. And here we have the Knight's... What would I even do for Hitofusa? The Knight's single strand, or something to that effect. Now, it's not really a single strand. The Knight's bundle of strands. This is one of those situations where it's actually a little bit more difficult to be literal than it is to like get the basic idea, right? Because it's essentially a wig, right? You're getting a wig of like hair. Let me actually, oops, that was the thing where I could put it on. I wanted to do that to save time. right? And so now that I put it... Oop, take it off. Put it back on again. Come now. There we go. Now that I've got it on and I turn around, you can see this is like a ponytail of silver hair. But the, like, gathering, the single gathering of that bunch of strands is what Hitofusa is referring to. So, and of course, there's a tiny little hat for style in the front. But that's not what it's named for. Surprisingly, I would have named it for the hat, the tiny little hat. But I'm not the one who came up with the item name. Anyway, let's get back to the description here. So the knight's wig, or the knight's, you could say the knight's ponytail, but it's not a great name for an item. I think knight's wig is probably the best way to go here, and I think that's what the official translation is. I'll put it on the screen. We'll find out. But as for the description, okay, an accessory that the knights of Cainhurst were fond of, modeled after a single bundle of strands of tied together silver hair. And then the final description here is sort of cluing you into the fact that this is all part of the Knights set, because it's exactly the same as everything else, right? The Way of Cainhurst is a mix of nostalgia and bombast, etc., etc. So that part, I didn't remember that part being exactly the same, but the first part just tells you, it's an accessory that the nobles enjoyed, right? They had their aesthetic preferences, right? They like to wear wigs. They liked this particular style of wig. So here you go. And I don't think... This creeps me out every time I do it. Yeah, but I always think that there's supposed to be an item back there, and there's not. The whole point is to come out onto this particular passage. And by the way, I didn't like the other time that the main path, like, forced you to, like, traverse these rooftops. I thought that, like, I wanted it to be this cool secret thing, and it wasn't. The fact that this, right here, this sort of rooftop section is the main path, doesn't bother me as much. I think this is fine. I think it's kind of cool, actually. Even if this jump is terrifying. I call it a jump, it's really just a drop. Terrifying, though. It feels like I'm just about to walk off the edge. Alright. Actually fairly safe, but scary. Okay, and I always feel like there's an item back there. There's an item up here! We got it. They're just throwing the kin cold blood at us now. You can tell we're getting late in the game. Giving us really high level cold blood. Giving us bloodstone chunks. Making some good progress. Okay. But yeah, something about the way that this is set up. I just like that this is the main path. As opposed to before, where it felt like, oh, you forced me to go a cool way. That makes it less cool. This one, it's like, oh, you're forcing me to go a cool way. This one is really cool. I think maybe because it ends on the roof, right? Because if it didn't end on the roof, I don't know how cool I'd think it was, but it does, right? And it ends on this very cool, I don't want to go in. I don't want to get too close. It's very cool boss arena. So we're going to do what I always do when I get here, which is very quickly warp back to the dream. That'll allow us to sort of replenish our resources, and then we're going to just run straight back here and fight the boss. So I think I'll skip all the warping around for you, and I'll check back in on you when I'm about to walk in on the boss. See you soon. Okay, I'm back. You can see I did make some blood bullets here, so I'm short one blood vial, but I'm hoping that we'll still be in good shape here. I've never fought the boss with this particular setup before, but we'll see how it goes. All right, here we are, and our boss is Martyr Logarius. Very straightforward translation of that. Junkyosha is, someone who is a martyr. And Logarius, yeah, I got that right, is Logarius. So there you have it. All right, thanks for missing. All right, now we're going to get the big explosion skull. Okay. Ooh, I'm glad. The speed here is very handy. Oh, that's not the thought we were going to get another big close range skull. Ooh, the speed! The speed! Ah! Uh-oh. Big explosion. Okay. Nope, gotta move. I ran out of stamina. Okay, I lucked out. Oh, the speed is very nice. Normally, that attack is way, way more annoying. That quick little... see? That quick little jab that he does, like, blasts you away, like, instantly. And it can do a lot of damage. But the fact that if I just want to bully this guy, I'm fast enough, that's great. Oh, that's really cool. Oh, I should have backed off that time. I can only do it if I'm very specifically following up on a stab. Wow. I've never had a fight against Logarius that went this way. All right, will I have time? If I don't get this, okay, good. He forms like a ward or a barrier around himself, and uh-oh. That was a waste of Executioner's Gloves. I wasn't sure how useful it would be. Oh, I got the timing wrong. Okay, this time I think the speed is going to be, like, less useful for this particular phase. All right, that's fine. Okay. Okay. I should be going for parries, I think. They make a little bit more sense in this second phase. Especially because I have the benefit of, I have the benefit of stopping his bullet ward that he will put up if you don't get that particular backstab. Makes the second phase a lot harder. Nope. Pressed the wrong button. And I died. Alright. Martyr Logarius is hard. Alright, here we go. Take 2. I don't know how many tries this is going to be. Might make sense for me to go into, like, montage mode almost immediately. Just because, again, this can be a difficult boss. Oh, I got lucky there. Ah. I attacked into his close proximity skull. Alright, that I deliberately dodged through, so that worked out. Uh-oh. Second strike. Oh, right off the roof. That's definitely staying in. That's hilarious. Okay, take 3. Hopefully it's a little more successful than take 2. And I think what I'll do is if this attempt is not successful, I'll go ahead and create a montage. Or, you know, if I don't get enough tries to merit a montage. Ha! Ha! Look at me, I get to be a bully! I get a little too taken by that possibility. Oh, I love it. He doesn't fall off the roof. Oh, that time I didn't quite get the speed. Was I saying? I think I was saying something to the effect of how, I should have just hit attack again. I would have been fine with this weapon. I mistimed the dodge. I think I was saying something about how, alright, interesting. If it's a short number of attempts before I succeed, it'll just be a short montage. I was gonna say I'd just skip ahead, but whatever. Uh-oh. Am I dead? No. Okay, good. Ah, I missed the timing again! Man, I made it look so effortless in my first try. And now, like, every single time I'm getting destroyed by the circle of spirits. These vengeful spirits, by the way. Uh-oh. Get away from the wall. They look pretty similar to those, don't they? almost identical, right? Isn't that interesting? There we go. Finally got the timing again. Nope, I wasn't far enough away. No, I wasn't fast enough. I'm so fast, but it wasn't fast enough. All right, please backstab. Uh-oh. Oh, I'm in real trouble now. All right, he's got the bullet word. This is gonna be tough. Let's see if I can backstab him at some point and wear off that ward. Will this work? I hope it'll work. Nope. All right. You could see that bullet just fly off into space. Nope. That makes this phase a lot harder. Alright, still got the timing on that. That's good. It's funny to me that this spear does a slashing attack, like, exactly when I don't want it after a quick step. Alright, and I'm running out of blood vials. Oh, I should have done it. Oh, well. Should have done a charged R2. Alright, well, we can wear him down. Who needs bullets? He'll just keep flying over us, and we'll get in a few stabs. And slowly... Uh-oh. One of us will fall. Aw. At least it did a lot of damage. You know, I wonder... I gotta get better at that timing again. I wonder... Oh, dang it. Okay, I see what you're doing here. That sword doesn't get a blade ward. You can deal with that. No, let me transform my weapon! Great. Alright, well, it hurt a lot. And it's not done hurting. Alright. Now I've transformed my weapon. So... how do you feel about... Uh-oh. How do you feel about this charged attack? Nothing at all, apparently. Am I dead? I might be dead. He's blocking the sword with his body! Alright, I'm gonna do a montage. I'll see you in the successful run. Risky. Yep, I was too close. Aw. Am I I too far away? Okay. Alright. Nope. Okay. Oh, that worked out. Aha! Okay. Where'd he go? Alright, hi there. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, man. Why do I always get hit by all three of those if I get hit by one of them? I'm not dodging the right way. I gotta try dodging to the left. And also not into that attack. How do you spin around so much? Okay. Yeah, dodging to the left is working a lot better. Oh, I wasn't as injured as I thought I was. Nope. Oh, well, it worked out to dodge right that time. What? You should be gone, sword. Oh, that worked out. Got him in the air. Haha. Right at the exact same time. Gotta keep rolling up. Yep. Caught me with it. Okay, fair enough. Alright. Not great. But I actually got out of it that time. Yeah, dodging left is a good idea against Martyr Logarius. That attack I'm not scared of. It just doesn't make any sense. How did you end up there? Okay. Yep. We have the exact same sense of timing on that attack, and it's disconcerting. Should have dodged left. Aw, I almost got it. I did a little better that time. Alright, classic approach. If I'm too far away, you can't hurt me. Oh, well, I meant to dodge left, I dodged right, but it worked out. No, it's too early. Yep, I knew it. I might get it anyway. Mm-hmm. Sort of fell down in the midair on that one. Nope. Nope. I was a little slow. Oh. I might walk away with this, though. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. Uh-oh. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'm doomed again. I have enough blood vials. I pressed dodge. He somehow, like, co-ops me. But it's not gonna matter. You're dead. What? Alright, well. Now you're dead. Whew! Okay. Well, that wasn't too bad. Once I figured out which way to dodge. Basically, the first time I figured out which way to dodge, I got to go the right way. Welcome back, everybody. Let's go over here. We're going to light this lantern. We're going to pick up this item. But I think this episode has probably gone on for long enough. It's kind of fun that we got a nice montage in the old hunt here. I can't remember if we've done one of those before. Martyr Logarius, definitely a worthy foe for a montage. So that's pretty fun. And for once, I think I'm not going to go back to the dream straight away, and you'll see why next time. But to do that, you'll have to join me because, obviously, next time, because I'm going to call an end to my hunt for the evening right now. But as always, I wish all of you good hunting.